everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my January and Christmas book haul. So we're going to jump pretty quickly into this because I have a lot of books to talk to you guys about. I purchased a lot of physical books and I have a lot of ebooks to talk about as well. So let's jump straight in. We will, as always, start off with the library books. I was really good again this month and I only picked up 3 library books this month. So first off we have Little Miss Stony Brook and Dawn. This is Babysitter's Club book number 15. As you guys know, I'm rereading this series from my childhood and this was the next one that I needed to pick up. I then picked up The Giver by Lois Lowry. I've never read this book. It is a kind of YA classic. Oh God, it's really short too. It's only just over 200 pages and it is really widely spaced, if you guys can see that. And I decided to pick this up because the movie is coming up soon on my list of movies that I wanted to watch, and so I wanted to read the book before I see the movie, obviously. So I grabbed this. This is the first book in a 4-part series. I know it's dystopian, but I don't know anything else about it. But like I said, it is a classic and a lot of people really love this, so I'm interested to see what it's all about. And then the final book that I picked up from the library in January was Murder in the Mews by Agatha Christie. This is the next book in the Hercule Poirot series that I need to read now that I've read Death on the Nile, which was in my January wrap-up. I actually think that this is a collection of, yeah, it is Murder in the Mews and other stories. So Murder in the Mews is, I think, just one of the stories. Yeah, so it's got Murder in the Mews, The Incredible Theft, Dead Man's Mirror, and Triangle at Rhodes. I typically don't enjoy her short stories as much as her, typical novels, but I want to read everything Agatha Christie's ever written eventually, and so this is the next one in the Hercule Poirot series, and so I grabbed it. Now let's move into the ebooks that I purchased in the month of January. So I purchased 3 ebooks this month. The first of those is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is the first book in a series, I believe, and it's a new adult romance. It's a hockey, so a sports romance surrounding hockey, and I'm pretty sure it involves a fake relationship and I think maybe friends with benefits. I'm interested. I enjoy all of those things in books, but yeah, so I just saw that. I think this one was free, and so I thought I'd give it a go, and then if I enjoy it I can maybe pick up the other books in the series, but it's pretty I've heard a lot about it on BookTube, so I decided to give it a go. The next book that I purchased was Unwelcome Guests by Anna Willett. This is just a thriller that I saw on there that was free, a standalone thriller, and so I decided to give it a go. It's basically about a couple who I think have kind of a strained relationship, and they go on a trip with his brother for some unknown reason to an isolated country house. And then I think the wife goes down into the cellar and finds something weird in the cellar. I think maybe it's got some haunted house aspects to it, maybe? I'm not really sure, but I'm happy to not be sure. It sounds like it'll be some fun. And then the final ebook that I purchased was Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. I was really excited to see this on a Kindle deal because this is a thriller that Lisa from Books and Smiles raved about a really long time ago. It's about 3 friends. One of them was murdered, one of them is in jail, and one of them is trying to find the truth. So I think it's basically about, it's 10 years, 20 years, however many years later, and it is discovered that the girl who was murdered by a serial killer that is known, but that serial killer happens to be one of the other friends, it was her boyfriend at the time. And then I think it was discovered that the friend whose boyfriend it was knew about what was going on. She's known what happened to the murdered friend all of these years, and so she goes to jail. And then I think it's about the remaining friend trying to just uncover all of the secrets surrounding that and what really went on. Sounds very, very interesting. I've been intrigued by this one, like I said, since Lisa first spoke about it, so I was really excited to see that on a Kindle deal. We're not done with ebooks because while those are the 3 that I purchased, I have 12 NetGalley books that I requested and was approved for this month. I actually have 2 others that I also requested that I haven't had a approval or decline on yet, and I actually think I was only declined on 1 other. So I requested so many books this month, which is, don't judge me, I can't help myself. I just sometimes get into such a mood for going through the NetGalley catalog and just requesting all the things that I find really interesting, and then I get approved for a bunch of them and then I panic. basically is what happened. So let's jump in. Like I said, I'm going to talk to you about all 12 of the books that I was approved for on NetGalley. So the first book that I was approved for on NetGalley was The Couple on Cedar Close by Anna Lou Weatherly. This one is a thriller. Just warning right now, almost all of these are thrillers. It's a thriller, and it's about there's like a street, like a close-knit street, and they're having like a street barbecue, and there's a new neighbor on the street, and it's, I think, her first street barbecue, and it's also when she discovers that her husband is having an affair. I then think that the man who is having an affair is murdered, and the wife can't remember the last few hours, but she knows she didn't murder him. Pretty tropey thriller synopsis. I'm into it. The next book that I was approved for is Sleep by C.L. Taylor, which when I wrote that down, I realized that I'm pretty sure I own a physical book by C.L. Taylor that got really bad reviews, but that I bought for really cheap, that I have on my physical TBR. But anyway, this one is a thriller about an insomniac who takes a job at a hotel on a remote Scottish island, and it basically says 7 guests, 7 secrets. This one was giving me an Unwanted Guest by Shari LaPena vibes, and so I was very intrigued, and so I requested it. The next book that I was approved for is Someone You Know by Olivia Isaac Henry. This one is another thriller, surprise, surprise, about a girl whose twin sister went missing when they were 14, and it's 20 years later and a body is found. And so now the spotlight has been placed on the family. And then the quote from the synopsis that I'll read you that really intrigued me says, "It's common knowledge that more often than not, these crimes are committed by someone close to the victim, someone they trust, someone they know." Very intrigued. It sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun. The next book that I was approved for is My Sister Is Missing by Julia Barrett. Another thriller. This one is about a woman whose sister has recently had a baby, and she's been kind of struggling to cope, and then one day she disappears with the baby, and then some footage is found, or is released by, there's some footage that happens of a woman throwing herself in front of a train with a baby, and so it's about this girl trying to figure out if that's her sister, what's going on, etc. The next one I was approved for is For Better and Worse by Margot Hunt. This one has been, I've heard a bit about. I think this one might have been a book of the month pick recently, and so I'd heard a bit about it and I was intrigued by the plot. So when I saw it on NetGalley, I requested it. So it's a thriller about 2 people who, when they're in law school, they kind of plot the perfect murder, just like theoretically. And it's years and years later, and that they're now married, and something happens to their son, and they basically decide that it's time to put the plan into action. I'm very intrigued by that. The next one is The Good Friend by Joe Baldwin. This one is described, it's a thriller, described as Heavenly Creatures meets The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I was drawn in by that. That's all I needed to know. It's basically about 2 friends that are kind of reconnecting after, childhood friends reconnecting after years and years apart. And it's described just as being very psychological in nature, which I was intrigued by. But like I said, that heavenly creature meets The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Yes, please. The next one is Remember Me by D.E. White. This one is a thriller about a girl who 15 years earlier she went missing while in the woods. However, there were 8 other people in the woods that night, and they've all got a secret, and it's about her best friend who is now a detective, that whole kind of thrillery trope, which I'm into all the thriller tropes. Her best friend's now a detective, and her best friend is trying to figure out what happened that night, basically. Like I said, tropey, but I love it. Next, we have 2 that I was approved for that actually aren't thrillers. Surprise, surprise. First off, we have The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston. This one is the sequel to Geekerella, which I listened to on audio last year and really enjoyed. All I know about the sequel is that it's a retelling of The Prince and the Pauper, and I think, I'm not sure that it's got female romance stuff going in there. I'm not exactly sure of that though, so don't quote me on that. But I really enjoyed the first book, and so I actually didn't expect to get approved for this. I just kind of was like, oh, I would want to read that, and so I requested it not expecting to be approved, and then I was, so that was nice. The other one that I have that isn't a thriller is called And We Call It Love by Amanda Fink. This one is YA. It's tagged as being poetry on Goodreads, but I think it might be a story told in verse, which I do enjoy. I haven't read too many, but I have enjoyed the couple that I've read. And it's basically about 2 best friends who a boy comes between them, and it puts a strain on their friendship. However, then the friend who's now got the boyfriend starts to turn up with bruises. And so I think it's about the friend dealing with her friend now being in this abusive relationship. It just sounded kind of intriguing. I'm into dark kind of YA stories like that, and I was interested that it was poetry/verse type of novel, and so I decided to give it a go. Next, we have Too Close by Natalie Daniels. This one sounds so intriguing to me. It's a thriller about two women who have been best friends since they were really little kids. They met one day and discovered they lived next to each other and have been really, really close ever since. However, it's now years and years later. They're both married when one of them goes through a really awful divorce, and all of a sudden she's around at the other friend's house all of the time, and it just starts to put kind of a strain on the friendship. And one day, the friend, not the one who got divorced, the one who is feeling the strain, I guess you would say, wakes up in a psychiatric hospital being told that she's committed a terrible crime. That sounds so intriguing. I'm really excited to read that one. Next, I have Dirty Little Secrets by Jo Spain. This is another thriller. It basically is about 6 neighbors with 6 secrets living in like a gated community. And we know, like, there's a dead body that's been rotting in number 4 for 3 months. And they're all apparently so close and nice to each other. And the police are like, well, why did no one go around to check on her then and know that she's been murdered? So, again, intriguing. And then in a similar vein to that, the final book that I was approved for on NetGalley is Watching You by Lisa Jewell. So again, this is a thriller, and again, it's set in like a small community or like neighborhood type of thing in England. I don't actually know anything about it apart from that, except that it was getting quite a bit of hype on BookTube. And so when I saw it on NetGalley, again, I just was like, I'm going to request that and see if I get approved. And I was, so I'm excited to have it and give it a go. Alright guys, now let's move on to all of the physical books that I purchased in January. I have a lot to talk to you guys about, so I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as possible. So first off, I knew that for Christmas, for like some of my money that I had to spend, that I wanted to go on a big secondhand book shopping spree because I had been on a restriction for book buying, and that I was only letting myself do that kind of spree once for my birthday in June and once around Christmas. So after Christmas in January, hence why the books are in this haul, I went. So the first little set of books that I have here, I actually purchased separate from the whole spree. There's one store that I normally go to that I just happened to be near there like prior to when I was going on the spree, and so I just popped in while I was there to save myself some time on the other day that I was going to be doing the spree. And so the first set of books that I picked up there is the Shades of London trilogy by Maureen Johnson. So the second 2 are in hardcover and the first is in paperback. They are The Name of the Star, The Madness Underneath, and The Shadow Cabinet. So I believe this is a YA trilogy about... It's set in London, and there is some murders going on that are mimicking the Jack the Ripper murders, and I think it's also got some ghosty stuff going on. I don't know too much about it apart from that, but I've heard pretty positive things about this, and I was just excited to see the whole trilogy there. I think these were, yeah, $3 each, so I immediately snapped them up. The other book that I picked up at that secondhand store was Imaginary Girls by Nova Rensuma. This is one that I've heard a little bit about in the past and I've always been kind of intrigued by. It's about 2 girls who are sisters, and they've got a really close relationship. And then one night, one of the sisters finds the dead body of a classmate like floating in the reservoir, and then she gets sent away. I don't really know why, but then I think it's about her returning back to like being with her sister and about like their kind of relationship. I don't know if it's got anything to do with the mystery aspect of what happened to the girl who drowned or was killed. I don't really know, but I think it's got a lot to just do with the sister relationship. And like I said, I've always been kind of intrigued about this. I think it's got some like kind of weird, maybe magical realism-y type vibes, but I'm not exactly sure, but I am intrigued by it. Next, we have a pile of books that I purchased with a gift card that I was given by my sister for Christmas to a bookstore. So I actually spent $15 of my own money on top of the gift card and picked up 4 books, which I was really happy with. So the first one that I picked up is Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. This is the sequel to Vicious. I'm sure you guys have all heard about this. Vicious is about 2 guys who discover in college a way to become extraordinaries, which gives them extra abilities, and then it's set years later when they are both now kind of villains, and about one of them's just escaped from jail. It's about their kind of rivalry. Very, very interesting. I loved that book. I think I gave it 5 stars. Really, really loved that book, and this is the sequel, and it's gotten pretty good praise for the most part, so I'm excited to read this to see what happens next. The next 2 books that I picked up with that gift card are Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend, and Wonder Smith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is the first 2 books in the, I think, is it just called the Nevermore series or the Morrigan Crow series? I don't know. This is the series that I've heard a lot about, that's being compared to Harry Potter, which makes me nervous, but it's got really, really, really good reviews so far. I don't know when I'm going to read these because it's an ongoing series. I don't know how many books there's going to be, and I hate waiting for books, but I couldn't pass these up when I saw them. I was so excited to buy them. They were actually fairly cheap. I mean, I had the gift card, but they were only $13 each, which in Australia is a good price for a brand new book. So I grabbed those. And then the final book that I grabbed with my gift card is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I am so intrigued by this plot. I want to read this so bad. This is about a party where a woman is murdered, and then it's about a guy trying to solve the murder, but it's like Groundhog Day. Every day the murder happens again and he needs to solve it, but on top of that, every day he wakes up in a new guest at the party's body. I am so intrigued. I've heard really mixed reviews of this, but that synopsis gets me every time. I am just so excited to read this. Next, after that, I didn't buy this with my gift card, but I did purchase it on the same day. That was Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. You guys have already seen this in my TBR video. I wanted to purchase this while it was out, partly because I wanted to get it in the large, like tall paperback because it matches the other 2 books that I've got, but also because I've been waiting on reading the other books until this book came out. So now I finally got my hands on it, and as I mentioned, it was in my TBR, so hopefully we'll be reading this really soon. It's so big, but I did grab this one as well. The next book I want to talk about is 4 Seconds to Lose by K.A. Tucker. This is, I think, the 3rd book or the 2nd book in the 10 Tiny Breaths series. I can't tell you what it's about because I don't know. All I know is that it's new adult, and I picked up the other 3 books in the series secondhand quite a while ago, and so this is just one of the books from my online order that just happened to turn up at this point in the month. But so I do have this now as well, so I've got this complete series now, which is great. Now we come to the point of the month where I went on my secondhand book shopping spree. I was actually pretty restrained. I really tried to not go crazy and just grab absolutely anything, but only grab books that I was actually genuinely interested in. So the first one that I have is Shutter Island by Dennis Lehane. This is a book that is very popular. I have seen the movie though, so I know the big twist in this, but it gets really positive reviews, so I was excited to read it and give it a go. So that's the first one I picked up. I then also found the first 3 books in the, is it just called the Etiquette and Espionage series? So I've got the first one, Etiquette and Espionage, the second one, Curtsies and Conspiracies, and the third one, Waistcoats and Weaponry. So this is a spin-off series to the Solace series by Gail Carriger. And I really want to read that series as well. So when I saw this spin-off trilogy, I decided to grab them. Next, I grabbed The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This one is a historical fiction, and it doesn't necessarily sound like something I would be into. It's about a woman and her 4 daughters who are related to an evangelical Baptist who goes on a mission to the Belgian Congo in 1959. And it's a story of the family's tragic undoing and remarkable reconstruction over the course of 3 decades in post-colonial Africa. I don't know that's something that I'm interested in, but I hear a lot about this. It's described as being a modern classic, and so I want to give it a go. Next, I picked up Burnt Paper Sky by Gilly Macmillan. This is just a thriller that I recognize, that I've heard a little bit about. It's about a woman whose son goes missing. Don't know too much about it apart from that, but I always enjoy a good thriller. I then picked up a book I was very excited to grab, and that is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I don't know what this is about, but this is very, very, very popular. Chimamanda is a Nigerian author, and this gets such good reviews, and so I wanted to read this for a while and kind of see what it's all about. And when like I said, I saw this for, it was 3 for $5, but I didn't end up getting 3. This is what I mean. I was really restrained. When I went up to the counter and she was like, oh, you can get another one for only $5, I was like, I think they were $2 each. I was like, no, that's fine, because I didn't want to just grab something that I wasn't that interested in. I'm really proud of myself. The next book that I picked up is possibly the book in this book haul that I am most excited about out of every single book that I picked up in January, and that is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I'm sure you guys have all heard about this. It is so popular on BookTube, and I just think I'm going to love this. I also think my mom is going to love this. This is about a woman who is just leading a kind of simple, ordinary, but tough life. I think she drinks a lot on the weekend, doesn't have a lot of friends, and then one day something happens, and it's just about her life. It just gets such good reviews, and I'm really excited to read it because I think I'm gonna love it. Apologies if we just had a camera angle change. My battery ran out and I had to swap it over, so apologies. Next we have The Nowhere Child by Christian White. I definitely think it changed because I feel a lot closer to the camera now, so I'm sorry. This one is a thriller. It's by an Australian author, and I've heard a little bit about it, so I was excited to see it secondhand because I think it's a fairly recent release. And it's about this girl who is living in Australia when she gets approached by someone who's investigating the disappearance of a little girl in Kentucky in America, and they believe that she is that little girl. And so it's about her trying to discover what the go is with all of that. Next, I picked up Little Bird by Camilla Way. This is one of the only books that I picked up that I didn't know anything about, but I was really intrigued by the synopsis. I'm going to read it to you. It says, "It took 1 second to snatch the child, one silent, unseen moment to pluck her from the world. In a click of a finger, a blink of an eye, she was gone, as if, like a bird, she had just flown away." Kate never speaks about the past, and you would never know at first who she was, but if you looked closely, you might see how she glances nervously over her shoulder, as if she were being followed. If you paid attention, you might hear how carefully she speaks, and if you were to search, you might find the old newspaper clippings she keeps hidden away. It just sounds very, very intriguing, and so, like I said, I was really proud of myself for not picking up random books. This is the only one I picked up that I wasn't sure about, but it sounds intriguing. And the final book that I picked up on the secondhand shopping spree was The Child by Fiona Barton. I own The Widow by Fiona Barton, and so I just recognized the name, and I know it's a thriller. I don't actually even know what this is about. The synopsis is very vague, which I like in thriller synopsis. But yeah, I just recognized that I owned a book by this author already, and so I decided to grab this one. I believe I've heard now that this is a series, that The Widow and this one are the first two, and there's now another book. So maybe if I like them, I'll continue on with the whole series. I think it's the type of series where it follows like one journalist or detective or something like that, but I'm intrigued. I love thrillers, so I'm sure I'll like it. Next, we have a book from one of my online book orders, and that is Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. I own Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and I also own Winter. I found Winter in a really good condition secondhand, so I own the first and the last books, and so I bought this one so that eventually I will own the whole series and can read it. This is a fairy tale retelling series, sci-fi based fairy tale retellings. Very intrigued, get very, very popular, you know, reviews, very popular books. So I'm hoping I'm gonna love that series. The next book that I picked up is Babysitters on Board by Anne M. Martin. This is the first super special. And I picked this up. So originally, my library doesn't have this book for some reason, and as if you guys know, I'm rereading the series, and so I wanted to read all of the books. And so I found an old secondhand copy on eBay and purchased it, waited a really long time, it never came. I contacted the seller with no communication whatsoever. They just refunded my money, which was really annoying. So I ended up going onto Thrift Books and ordering a copy off there, and that one did eventually arrive, and so I now have it. The super specials are normally a little bit longer, and they follow all of the characters at the same time. So you get different, you know, alternating perspectives in alternating chapters. And I presume this one is about them going on a cruise. I have read it, of course. I've read all of these books when I was a kid, but yeah, excited to have my hands on that. We then come to books that I purchased in my big Christmas order. Online order, it's not big. I purchase normally a couple of books that I normally would, and then I purchased a couple of the more expensive books off my wish list. So the first one that I have is Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You guys, I have a weird relationship with Taylor Jenkins Reid in that I don't have one, but I feel like an OG fan even though I've never read her, because I was so intrigued by her and thought that she was someone I was gonna love when I very first heard about One True Loves, before The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo ever came out. And I still haven't read anything by her, but I've been slowly buying her whole back catalogue. And then The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo came out, and she totally blew up. And I felt like, you know, that the hipster style, well, I liked her first, even though I've never actually read her, and I don't actually know if I like her. This one is, I think, a sliding doors type of story where we get a character who is at a gallery or something with her friend, and she has the decision to go home with her ex-boyfriend or to leave and just like go back with her friend. And I think we follow both avenues. I love a good sliding doors type novel. At least I think that's what this one is about. So I'm excited because I really do want to read all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. So I've got that one. I then picked up, you've seen this book, The Merciless Four by Danielle Vega. I had all the other books and I knew I was going to be reading this series really soon. Please come into focus. Thank you. And so I picked up this last books that I would have it to read. In a similar fashion to that, I also picked up Dawn Study by Maria Lee Schneider. You guys have actually seen this again in my TBR. Again, I knew that I was going to finally be reading the final trilogy in this and reading the final like finishing off the Chronicles of Ixia novels as a whole, and I didn't own this last one, and so I finally purchased it. And then from another online order, I picked up Cress by Marissa Meyer. So I now own the 4 main books in the series, and the only other one I need to buy is Fairest, which is the novella, because I do want to read that as well. And then another book from an online order is The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth. This one is about a girl whose parents die in a car crash, and her first reaction is that she feels glad that her parents never have to find out that she's gay. And then obviously there's a lot of guilt that goes along with that. And I think she then moves in with her aunt, and I think she gets sent to like a conversion camp when her aunt finds out that she's gay. Something like that. There is a movie of this now with Chloe Grace Moretz. So I've been intrigued by this book for a long time, so I finally purchased this off my wish list and it arrived in January. And then the last book in this whole book haul that I want to talk to you guys about technically arrived on the 1st of February, but I'm including it because I purchased this book back in November. It was supposed to arrive at the end of November, and I only just got it. This is the book that I've mentioned in a couple of hauls that's been missing for a really long time. I finally found out on the 1st that it had been delivered to some completely incorrect address. They were refusing to send it on to the correct address and were just going to return it to sender unless I went to get it. So I went to get it, which was a whole annoying debacle, but I finally have it. And that is The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Rae Carson. This is a YA fantasy trilogy. I actually don't really know what it's about, but it gets very, very good reviews, and I've been intrigued by it for a long time. The other annoying thing about this is I purchased this from Book Depository in the new covers, and I didn't get the new cover, I got this cover. I don't hate this cover, but I like the new covers a lot better, so now I'm kind of annoyed that it didn't turn up, so I may contact them and just be like, look, that book finally turned up after like 3 months, but it's not the cover, and see what happens, because it's really annoying. So yeah, I'm glad to have it. I will eventually purchase the whole trilogy. Like I said, YA fantasy, can't tell you what it's about, but I've heard good things and I hope I'm really gonna love it. So that's it, you guys. Those are all of the books that I picked up in the month of January. Like I said, there was a lot to get through. Hopefully this video isn't super, super, super long. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would love to know if you've read any of these books, if you've got thoughts on them, or what you guys were purchasing in January or for Christmas. I would love to know. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That is all I have for this video today. Bye guys.